pleasure to be here this morning and talk a little bit about the proposed Atlantic Coast. First, I'd like to digress on some of the actions that have come from the Air Board. The Air Board has moved forward with a set of regulations, a very aggressive plan to reduce overall CO2 emissions from our electric generators by 30% over the next decade. We heard testimony from Director Paler a week ago in front of that commission, and Director Paler did testify on two things. How are we going to get from where we are today to where we need to be? Two things are going to be composed of that. One is an increase in renewable energy, which we all look forward to. The second, and more importantly, is the increased use of natural gas to replace the existing coal generation fired. That's how Virginia is going to reach a 30% reduction in CO2. Let me explain some of the realities of the region I represent, and I represent the Hampton Roads region, and particularly the cities of Virginia Beach and Norfolk are within my district. Last polar vortex, which I believe was 2 or 3 years ago, we have well over 100 customers, commercial customers, large-scale commercial customers that have curtailment contracts where they have a reduced price on natural gas, and for that, when there's times of extreme demand, they agree to have their natural gas either curtailed or turned off entirely. During that polar vortex, over 100 commercial customers the full extent of curtailment were curtailed just to keep people warm in the Hampton Roads area. That's the extent of the existing supply of natural gas to the Hampton Roads area. By the very definition of curtailment, we have slowed the economy. But I think more importantly to understand, every military facility in our area has a curtailment contract. So we were directly impacting the state of our national defense by not having the sufficient supplies of natural gas, existing pipelines today, and that's the state of the Hampton Roads community. That's without the continued conversion of our coal-fired power plants over to natural gas. So I think that gives the critical nature of why this pipeline is so important to Virginia and Virginia's future. I have, and where'd my chart go? I'd like to distribute this a little bit to the members of the board, if you will. And I have a chart here. This is the existing natural gas of major natural gas pipelines within the Commonwealth of Virginia. And also the major oil and petroleum delivery pipelines throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. As you can see, many of them pass through Virginia with spurs out across Virginia. That's our existing infrastructure for supply of gas and petroleum throughout Virginia. I want you to pay particular attention to this small purple line that comes off. That's spur 25 from the Colonial Pipeline. The Colonial Pipeline supplies diesel and gasoline to the Commonwealth of Virginia. For those folks here that oppose any pipelines, they would be pleased to know that Colonial Pipeline spur 25 will be shut down, I believe, effective August of 2008. Has direct consequences of not being able to supply through a pipeline oil and gas to Lynchburg and all the way out to Roanoke. What that means without the absence of that pipeline is somewhere between 250 and 300 trucks, petroleum trucks, will hit the roads of Virginia, either from Greensboro, North Carolina, or Richmond, Virginia, just to replace the lost capacity currently being delivered by that pipeline. Now, I don't know, and I can't calculate how much additional air pollution will result from 250 to 300 trucks coming along. I can calculate for you that it'll increase the fuel prices for those folks served by that pipeline, $0.05 a gallon, which may not sound like much, but if you've ever tried to talk about raising additional revenues for transportation, you'll understand that many members of the General Assembly and the general public consider $0.05 a gallon more gasoline pretty significant cost factor. So not having pipelines has direct consequences in addition to having them. As you can see, many of the areas that I thought I heard of the concerns about the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, you can see where the existing pipeline infrastructure already goes over mountains, goes through parks, goes through a number of areas. I suspect each of us drive every day and over and around these pipelines and never know they're there. And that's what happens once these pipelines are installed. So I probably use more than my time, but I want to close by just saying this, that we consider the Atlantic Coast Pipeline really an essential element to ensure that the citizens in my area, in the Hampton Roads area, have the gas supplies that we need to A, supply to existing businesses, and B, allow us the continued conversion over to less polluting forms so that we can generate our electricity. Thank you very much for your time.
Delegate Robinson.
My name is Roxanne Robinson, and I have the honor of representing the people of Chesterfield County, which is District 27th in the Virginia House of Delegates. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my views on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and draft water quality certification before you today. First of all, I want you to know that I do support the pipeline, and very strongly. I'm convinced it will ensure that Virginians in the future will have clean, safe, and reliable energy that we will need in the future. The project has tremendous potential, as we saw earlier, to increase economic development, more and better job opportunities, and stable energy prices for the Commonwealth. And I also believe it will improve the quality of Virginia's air by making clean burning gas more available for power generation. I want to endorse the draft water quality certification you're considering today. I believe the Department of DEQ used sound judgment and followed well-established regulatory procedures in developing their draft. In my opinion, DEQ wisely decided not to duplicate the environmental efforts of the other agencies, thus avoiding needless expenditures of taxpayer money and valuable staff time. And it gave the DEQ the freedom to look at the other aspects of the pipeline, construction, its operation, that not covered by the other agencies. The draft sets strict standards for the work in upland areas, since much of the project will be of Western Virginia. If not performed correctly, this work could have a negative impact on the Commonwealth's water quality. But the draft addresses those issues by setting strict standards for work in the delicate limestone karst terrain and in the western part of the state, and also for work on the steep slopes and areas prone to slippage and landslides. There are many other valuable provisions to protect Virginia's waters, as we heard earlier, including water quality monitoring, requirements for buffers along the streams and bodies of waters, and strict controls from the surface water withdrawals needed during the construction process. Finally, I commend the board and DEQ for the extensive opportunities they have provided for public comment. Once the process is concluded, which I hope we'll get to in the next couple of days, I'm confident that Virginia's precious water resources will be protected, and we can move this energy infrastructure project forward. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully approve the draft certification.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Buddy Fowler. I have the distinct privilege of representing people of Hanover, Caroline, and Spotsylvania counties in the Virginia House of Delegates, and also want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to. I want to say that I'm a strong supporter of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. I believe that secure, reliable, and most importantly, affordable energy, including natural gas, is a top priority for the people and for the businesses in my district. I believe that this valuable project will help ensure a sound energy future, not just for the 55th District, but for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. I support the draft water quality certification prepared for the pipeline by DEQ, and I respectfully request that you approve it. Among outdoor enthusiasts and sportsmen who have spent literally my entire life on and in the waters and woods of our Commonwealth, including the crown jewel of Virginia, the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries, I must emphasize that no matter how valuable a project may be from an economic standpoint, we must make absolutely sure that it's built and operated in a manner that protects Virginia's valuable natural resources. Anything less is unacceptable. Fortunately, I have confidence in the ACP developers' commitment to in the care they have shown in planning the project and its construction. The Department of Environmental Quality's draft gives me added reason to be confident. I think DEQ has taken a wise and prudent path in developing this document, and it contains many strong features that will provide added layers of protection for Virginia's water quality. In this draft, DEQ properly focuses on pipeline construction and operation in what the agency calls the upland areas. This is important because so much of pipeline's route across Virginia crosses the highlands in the western part. The draft recognizes for work in the delicate limestone karst formations in western Virginia, and it sets strict standards for construction and operation in this terrain. The draft also contains other worthwhile protective measures, including provisions on water quality monitoring, on work in steep slope areas, on conditions for the surface water withdrawals that may be needed during construction, and for protective buffers around streams, among others. So in closing, I'm confident the draft will ensure that this valuable project meets strict standards for protecting Virginia's water resources, and I again urge you to approve it, and with your approval, help move this vital energy project forward. Thank you again for your time.
Yes, I'm back again. Last week I was talking with you about the small 70-acre farm that I've lived on for 33 years, and today I'm here on behalf of the farm that my family has operated for over 100 years, and it is a 1,000-acre farm in Buckingham. The plan for this pipeline is for it to go through the middle of our operation for a mile. Only 4 miles after the largest compressor station that Dominion will have. And it's located on top of the Transco line, that, where that crossroad is. It's a matter of trust. And I don't trust that we're being looked out for and that my business will be able to survive this. It's impossible to trust when you know, as I do, as a consumer advocate fighting for consumers for all these years, and over 3 years of fighting this, and I can't even get the pipeline outside of an area where we would have to cross it multiple times a day. And I trust you saw the 2 farmers who were killed in the farm using their land in Illinois last week. These things happen all of the time, and we're going to have to deal with it. This process is premature. The plans, all the things that you've been hearing that aren't even here, we're trusting that we're going to approve now and that things are going to be done right in the future. But we don't have any guarantees. We don't have reasonable assurance. We don't even know for sure that the Army Corps of Engineers is going to approve the permit, but we're assuming that that's what's going to happen. We're assuming that if an inspector shows up once every 4 or 5 days, that they'll be able to find the things that they need to find. Our water is important. It's vital to our family business. My father was a part of developing the watershed system in our county. Years changed many of our management practices to protect the water and to avoid sedimentation and erosion. We're adding wells regularly, and we'll continue to do that to be sure that we do the best that we can for our water. I can't even find the North River, which will be crossed just before our farm, listed on the plans. We've been doing our part, but I'm not convinced that everything we have done through the years isn't going to be undone. talk about trust, I live in Southwest Virginia most of the time now, and we've had a problem where the pipeline came down over a mountain for Celanese. My understanding is that it took multiple citizen complaints to get it even inspected after there was lots of erosion, and here several years later it still hasn't been fixed. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence that if there are problems on my property, that they're going to be taken care of. And the fact that we're told that extraordinary measures are being taken in what the department is doing here doesn't give me a lot of confidence when I know of things that have occurred where the standards have not been met. Where are the resources, the dollars, the people who aren't tied to the pipeline owners who are going to ensure that the inspections happen? We have been, as a state, through cuts in budget for years now, and we have less staff. How are we going to get this done? You know, when this started, the company, big deal that they were going to give us this pipeline, that it was going to be monitored 24/7 with fiber broadband. I guess they found out it cost too much, because now we're back to last century's point-to-point microwave. I'm not convinced that we're going to be looked out for. This company knows how to sound good, but they don't like spending their money. This is an LLC. They can sell to someone else, and we don't have any guarantees that things will be looked at for us in the long run. It could even get sold to someone. We don't have protection. Can you ensure that we're going to have clean water? There's no bond that would make sure that our costs are taken care of if there are problems. Please do not approve this until you have all of the information. Get proof. Get the absolute confidence. Don't just trust that this company will do the right thing. And don't just trust for the generations to come that this company isn't going to sell to somebody who we will have no control over. It's our future that's at risk here, and the future of our heritage, like this farm that my family has nurtured for over 100 years. We are already providing and not be able to if this project damages our property.
Thank you.
I have worked on this pipeline for 3 years. My name is Laura Cross. I've worked on this pipeline for over 3 years, and I know there is nothing that I can say that will convince you, because I've seen that this is not how this works. A year ago, I was talking permit for the compressor station, and I watched over 95 people, person after person, testify from that county that this is not something they wanted around them. I watched a handful of people who appeared to work for the industry, who we may see today, testify in support of the project, and after person, the board voted in support of permitting the compressor station. Last week I was here and I watched person after person testify for their lives, for the things that they are fighting for, and then I watched this board approve that project. So I know how this works. And in the meantime, this process is described as democratic. The numbers don't add up. And so we know what's going on. We know that have taken money from Dominion. Hayes worked for Dominion that is still active as far as October. As a lawyer for that company, David Paler, the person who is giving you information, who controls what the DEQ tells to you, the rest of the board, that person has also received gifts from Dominion. We say no more. There is a legacy of harm in this state, and what they didn't tell you when they say environmental justice communities, what that means is that the compressor station is proposed for the site, a piece of land that was once a plantation, and everyone around that plantation is as the descendants of freedmen, people who formed community after. This state has a legacy of harm. That legacy of harm has continued through cycles, from the enslavement of African people to the exploitation of indigenous people on this land, the tobacco and coal and pipelines. That legacy continues, and we are going to fight it all along the way. If you look at history, look at the players. Who are the players? They're the people that make these decisions. They're sitting over there. There's the people who allow these decisions to happen. There's the people who enforce these decisions, and there's the people who fight back. What are we fighting for? I am fighting because this is my world. I'm 22 years old and living in the middle of mass ecological destruction, species extinction, and the destruction of human life. 2 people died last week, the day before you approved the Mountain Valley Pipeline, from a gas pipeline explosion. This is the inheritance that people my age have, and it will not be the legacy that we leave, because that is not enough. I'm fighting because I love the people in this room, and this is all life is to me, is doing right by each other. This is the legacy, and we're going to fight for it.
Is a deliberate perversion of fraudulent interpretation of a phrase that suits the purposes of the applicant, but certainly is not mindful of the waters you're supposed to be protecting. I would like you to mentally take a step back from these proceedings for a moment. Has there ever before been a project that generated 15,000 comments to the State Water Control Board? Many people are extremely concerned about the devastation that would be caused by this potential project. The board needs to thoroughly examine much information which is currently required for construction before they give a certification to determine if construction is even feasible. This should not be a question of merely satisfying the letter of the law to include a statement of reasonable insurance. Lack of information cripples your judgment. You need to show some courage and common sense in responding not by making a jumble of piecemeal supplemental conditions, but by using your authority under the existing regulations to deny certification.
My name is Judd White, and I'm a retired environmental manager. I have a PhD in public policy and administration, focusing on environmental policy right out of DCU. My dissertation investigated water quality training and accountability issues. I also taught a graduate course for about 10 years as an adjunct professor at DCU, and exploring how business and environmental interests can coexist in a complex and challenging society. I have taken the time to review DEP's draft additional 401 certification and water quality conditions for the United pipeline, and also all the other relevant materials associated with the project, including DEP's guidance on interstate natural gas pipelines. I support the conditions in Section 5 of the proposed certification before you today. Among other things, as mentioned earlier, the conditions address repairing buffers, forest drainage, surface water withdrawal, spill prevention, and importantly, in my view, a water quality monitoring plan to assess conditions during construction. The surface water withdrawal requirements in the certification, in fact, are more stringent than those imposed by EPA on polluted water intake structures that are found in Section 316B of the Clean Water Act. DEP will also provide on-site inspections to determine compliance with the condition. This is very much a key to ensuring that water quality is maintained and protected. The conditions, as mentioned, address upland areas that may affect state waters but are located outside the scope of the Water Protection Permit Regulation Program and the engineers nationwide as well. DEP coordinated with the courts in the nationwide as well, and I believe these requirements are appropriate and comprehensive. I want to say something about DEQ in particular. I have worked with the DEQ staff over my career for many, many years, and I find them very conscientiously. They strive to do the right thing. That's a phrase that's used a lot over here, and I truly believe that the staff there are experts and they do strive to do the right thing. They're acutely aware of the challenges they face with conflicting interests on large major projects, which I have worked with them on in the past. The additional conditions addressing upland areas are an example of doing the right thing. DEP developed these requirements after extensive review of the numerous relevant reports and comments from concerned citizens. Additional water quality protection in these upland areas was needed, and they acted. I recommend that the board approve expanded 401 certification with the conditions in Section 5. Thank you.
Lewis from Queensboro. I'm an elected member of the Headwater Soil and Water Conservation District. We have spent millions of dollars fencing cattle out of streams, installing best management practices on farms to be good stewards of our land. It is modular. Responsibility. Interested in a number of comments questioning ACP. DEQ development process
Good morning, my name is Jessica Sims. I'm from Midlothian, Virginia. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline would directly threaten one of the three major drinking sources for Chesterfield, the James River. Despite what Delegate Robinson said this morning, it will not bring anything beneficial to that county. It will bring further degradation of our water supply to add on top of DEP's leaching of arsenic into the James River from coal ash wastewater at Dutch Gap. The ACP has been under review per the DEQ for 2 years. We've held 80 meetings and work sessions with the ACP to help them obtain approval. In comparison, you held only 3 public hearings for us, for citizens to have input on the ACP. These meetings were held within a span of 1 week, not 2 years. Only 3 hearings for a project that would cross 12 counties and 2 cities. Why would you focus on helping a corporation attain approval? You intend to rely on the nationwide permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, and you use their March 2017 condition that a quote mitigation plan is required for all permanent loss. Is mitigation the goal of all of the agencies working on this? The nationwide permit is not intended for large infrastructure or utility. The DEQ acknowledges the erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plans are critically important to protecting water quality. If they are critical, why are these decisions staggered? Allowing this permit tempers the appearance of each subsequent decision, and it also appears to rush your decision. Will our public input be accepted on those plans in the same format as we've had here for the ACP? Will paid spokespeople benefiting from the project again be able to flood our public hearings intended to address concerns from the community? Last week's hearing had 55 speakers opposed to the MVP. They presented expert analysis of why the permit should be denied. We were given only 24 hours to absorb and reconcile that information. The same will happen today. Why rush this process? Why does the DEQ pressure you to make a decision only moments after they present changes to their amendments? First analysis is frequently cited as justification for research studies not needing to be done by the DEQ, including the cumulative impact to state waters. Are we supposed to believe FERC's claim that impacts will return to baseline levels over a period of days? Don't accept that. I ask you to please deny the ACP water certification permit. There's no possible way that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline can be built without endangering our waterways. If you can't examine each crossing of waterways in the path and have full plans for everything, you are not using full consideration and you are denying our existing water quality laws. At the July 19th State Water Board meeting, Mr. Baylor, you announced that within the authority we have, we are absolutely committed to keeping the water clean. That is what we are asking all of y'all to do today. Thank you.